They took my siblings to the beach, said it was better if I stayed behind and worked. When they came home, my room was stripped bare. Every photo of me gone from the walls. That was 18 months ago, and even now I can still taste the silence. My name is Grace Thompson, and I'm 90. Back then, I thought I'd just been forgotten. Turns out, I'd been erased. My stepmother, Jennifer, called it family time. My father, Marcus, nodded along to keep the peace. So I smiled, and decided to give them exactly what they wanted. A house without me in it. What happened next still feels surreal. But the revenge? Let's just say, it was the first time I ever felt seen. They erased me first. I just finished the job. After my mom died, Dad remarried faster than I could grieve. Jennifer came with perfect hair, perfect smiles, and a talent for pretending kindness. I was 9 when she moved in. By 10, I was the built-in babysitter. Dishes, laundry, homework help, bedtime stories, all mine to handle. Dad said I was so responsible. Jennifer said I should be grateful. At 12, I learned that gratitude meant silence. At 14, I stopped asking for new clothes. At 16, I stopped asking for anything. By 17, I was running that house. While she called herself exhausted, I worked part-time at the cafe, paid for my own books, and still made dinner before anyone got home. Every chore done was another piece of me disappearing. They'd say, "You're such a help." But help isn't family. Help can be replaced. Spring break of senior year was supposed to be different. I'd planned to go with them, finally rest, just be their daughter again. Instead, Jennifer smiled across the kitchen sink. "It's better if you stay behind and work." Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "She's right, kiddo. You'll be more productive here anyway." That word, kiddo, used to make me feel loved. Now it sounded like a leash. When they left for the beach, Emma hugged me, Tyler cried, Jennifer rolled her eyes, and I stood in that empty doorway, watching the car disappear, realizing that even the dog got a spot in the back seat. But not me. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like wet concrete. I sat on my bed for hours, listening to the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, and the echo of my own heartbeat, a sound too small for a house that big. That weekend, they left for the beach. I left too, just differently. After they left, the silence swallowed the house whole. No laughter, no footsteps, just the faint hum of an empty refrigerator. I sat there for hours, staring at the family photos on the wall. Smiling faces, perfect frames, mine among them, a lie hanging in plain sight. Something inside me cracked that day. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. If they wanted a house without me in it, they'd get one. I called in sick to work, then started packing. My clothes, my books, the old jewelry box that was my mom's. Every trace of me went into boxes. By noon, my car was full. I rented a small storage unit across town and began the first of many trips. Every load felt like shedding skin, painful but freeing. When I came back, I looked around. Their house still looked perfect, but now I could see the cracks. The photo wall was next. I removed every picture that had my face in it. Each frame left a pale rectangle behind, like ghosts of the daughter they pretended to love. In the kitchen, I took the mug Emma made for me, the coffee maker I'd bought from my cafe paycheck, and the drawings we'd made together. I wasn't stealing. I was reclaiming. Then I took photos, every room before and after. Proof of how much space I'd once occupied. Proof of what they'd lose. The bathroom, stripped bare. The bedroom, hollow. The living room, uneven where I used to be. By the second night, I didn't cry. I felt calm, almost detached. When Madison's mom, Patricia, called, I finally said yes. She'd offered me a room for months. I'd always said no, afraid of leaving the kids behind. But that night, I realized I wasn't leaving them. I was just leaving the people who never saw me. Patricia arrived with her husband and Madison before sunset on Sunday. She took one look at the house and whispered, "Sweetheart, this isn't a home." They helped me load the last boxes, and when I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel regret, only release. Outside, the sky was bruised with orange and blue. The air smelled like rain and freedom. For the first time, the road ahead didn't scare me. It invited me. As we drove away, the windows reflected my face, half lit, half shadowed. For the first time, I liked the part in the light. I looked back once, just long enough to see the porch light flicker. That house had been my cage. Now it was just another dark shape in the rearview mirror. If they wanted to see what family time without me looked like, I showed them. They came back Sunday night, sunburned, laughing, their voices spilling through the driveway. I wasn't there to see it, but I could imagine every detail. Jennifer unlocking the front door, Marcus carrying the luggage, Emma and Tyler racing ahead, then silence. A different kind this time, the kind that hums with realization. The walls were bare, the shelves empty, even the smell of coffee gone. They thought I'd just cleaned, until they stepped deeper inside. My room? Empty. Bed stripped, drawers open. The ghost of my presence gone with the dust. The living room? Half the photos missing. Rectangles of pale paint, where my face used to live. The kitchen? No spices. No coffee maker. No warmth. I pictured Jennifer's expression, the twitch in her jaw, the tremor in her voice, when she realized this wasn't an accident. It was intentional. On the counter, my letter waited, each word chosen like evidence. Since you wanted family time without me, I thought you deserved a preview. I told them where I'd gone, what I'd taken, nothing that wasn't mine, just everything they'd taken for granted. I thanked Jennifer for teaching me the difference between being needed and being wanted. I thanked Marcus for showing me how silence can wound deeper than words. I told Emma and Tyler that I loved them. But love doesn't mean staying where you're invisible. Next to the letter, I left my key and the printed job posting, the one labeled Wanted, Live-In Help. Jennifer's face would have drained white when she reached the line, position previously filled by a family member. Marcus would have realized then I hadn't run away. I'd resigned. Emma probably cried first, calling my name into the echo. Tyler would have followed, asking when I'd come back. No one answered. Not this time. Jennifer's voice cracked. Marcus cursed under his breath. The sound of a photo frame hitting the floor was the only reply the house gave them. The silence that used to belong to me now belonged to them. When Patricia texted, "They're home," I pictured Jennifer pacing, Marcus staring at my empty doorway, both of them realizing how much one ghost could haunt a house. I didn't reply. I sat outside beneath the bruised sunset, watching the lights flicker on, in windows that no longer felt like home. The breeze carried faint echoes of laughter, memories dissolving into night. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. It was mine. And as darkness settled over their perfect house, I finally smiled, not out of spite, but peace. Because sometimes, the quietest revenge is simply walking away and never needing to return. They thought I was gone for good. They had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Unknown number first, then Dad, then Jennifer. I ignored the first 5 calls, but on the 6th I answered. "Grace, you get back here right now," Dad barked, his voice sharp with panic. "You can't just leave like this." "Actually," I said softly, "I can." There was silence, the kind that follows a truth too heavy to deny. "You're being dramatic," he snapped. "Come home so we can talk about this." "Home?" I laughed. "When was the last time it felt like home, Dad? When was the last time you defended me? When Jennifer treated me like help?" No answer. Just breathing. Tight. Uneven. Then Jennifer's voice cut in. "Grace, this is ridiculous. You can't abandon your responsibilities." "What responsibilities?" I asked. "The ones you never asked if I wanted? The ones where I work, clean, and get called selfish for wanting love?" "You're overreacting," she hissed. "The kids love you. How can you do this to them?" "I didn't do anything to them," I said. "You did, the day you taught them." "I wasn't family." Her breath hitched. I could almost hear her blinking back tears. "You wanted family time without me? Well, now you know what it feels like." The line went dead. For a while, I just stared at the phone, feeling both empty and weightless. Then it rang again. Emma. Her voice cracked. "Grace, why did you leave?" "Mom's crying. Dad's angry. Tyler doesn't understand." I swallowed hard. "Oh, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong. Then why can't you come home?" "Because, Emma, sometimes you have to walk away, so people realize what you gave them." She started sobbing. I bit my lip to keep my voice steady. "Tell Tyler I love him," I whispered, "and that I'll always be his sister." After the call, I sat on the porch of Patricia's house, watching sunlight break through the clouds. It felt like the universe itself was exhaling with me. Patricia brought me coffee. She didn't ask questions, just sat beside me in silence, the kind that felt safe. "You did the right thing," she said finally. "They needed a wake-up call." "And you needed peace." I nodded, eyes burning. "I don't know if I wanted revenge or just freedom." "Maybe both," she said gently. I smiled. For once, I didn't have to apologize for it. But that was only the beginning, because the next call changed everything. It came that evening, a quiet number I almost didn't answer. When I did, a voice I never expected trembled on the line. "Grace," Jennifer whispered, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." Her tone wasn't angry anymore. It was scared, human. And for the first time, I realized the story wasn't ending. It was turning. And what she said next shattered everything I thought I knew. "Grace," Jennifer whispered, her voice barely holding together, "I need to ask you something. Did I really treat you that badly?" For a second, I couldn't breathe. All those years of silence had led to this moment. "I don't know what you want me to say," I replied quietly. "You already know the answer." She started crying. Real tears this time, not the performance kind. "I was cruel," she said. "I thought if I kept control, I could keep things perfect. But all I did was break you." Her confession didn't bring satisfaction. It brought stillness. "You can't fix the past," I said. "But you can stop pretending it didn't happen." "I want to try," she whispered. "Not for me, for Emma, for Tyler." That line softened me, because despite everything, those kids still mattered to both of us. We talked for almost an hour. About forgiveness, about boundaries, about how love shouldn't hurt to earn. She didn't beg me to come home. She asked how to make it right. For the first time, Jennifer listened, really listened. And I realized forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means finally choosing peace over proof. When we hung up, I stepped outside. The air smelled like rain and beginnings. Patricia was tending her garden. She looked up, smiled knowingly, and said, "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" "It does," I whispered. Because healing isn't loud. It's the quiet return of your own heartbeat. Weeks later, we all sat at one table again. No tension, no performance, just presence. The same table I once set for others was finally set for me. If you've ever had to walk away to find peace, this story is for you. You don't need their permission to start over. Just courage to stay gone until you feel whole again. If you've been through this, you're not alone. Have you ever faced something like this? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes the best revenge is living free and living well. They tried to erase me. I learned to write myself back before saying goodbye. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family betrayal stories that reminds us we are stronger than we think.
I stepped off the plane holding my daughter's hand. The wind at the regional airport smelled faintly of pine and jet fuel. Maya, 5 years old in her favorite blue coat, squeezed my fingers as her feet touched the tarmac. Behind us, the private Cessna Citation hummed quietly. In front of us, a black Audi waited with the engine running. It had been 11 years since I last saw this town. 11 years since I left it with a backpack $300 and a bruise on my cheek I pretended didn't sting. 11 years since my mother, Vivian Whitmore, looked me in the eye and said, "You're no daughter of mine." She hasn't seen me since. Not after I built a company from scratch. Not when I earned my first million. Not when I gave birth to the granddaughter she doesn't know exists. I bent down to adjust Maya's scarf. She looked up at me with her father's green eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy," she whispered, "are we here?" I nodded. We are. The last time I stood in this town, I had no place to go. Today, I had booked the suite at the nicest hotel in town, and tomorrow I would walk into the house I grew up in. I wasn't back for revenge, or closure, or forgiveness. I came back to let them see who I became without them, and to show them the child they gave up before she was ever born. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Not in square footage, it still had the 2-story white colonial facade, the bay windows trimmed in forest green, the same brass door knocker shaped like a lion's head. But time had worn down its sharpness. The once manicured lawn was patchy now. The shutters needed repainting. The flower beds my mother used to obsess over had gone to seed. Still, it stood tall, as if pretending nothing had changed. Maya pressed her face against the car window. "Is this where you grew up, Mommy?" "Yes," I said. "From the time I was born until the night I left." "It's pretty," she said, "the way only a child can without knowing what lives beneath paint and siding." We sat there in silence for a few moments, the engine ticking quietly. I hadn't called ahead. I didn't want them preparing a speech or adjusting the lighting. I wanted the truth, the kind you only see when no one has time to hide it. When I finally rang the doorbell, the chime echoed inside same old Westminster melody, expensive and theatrical. My mother once told guests she had it custom installed to feel elevated. The door opened, and for a heartbeat, no one spoke. My father, Alan Whitmore, stood there older, thinner, wearing a cardigan despite the warmth. His eyes widened as he looked at me, then dropped down to Maya, who was peeking out from behind my legs. "Claire," he whispered, like saying my name might break something. "Hello, Dad," I said, my voice steady. Before he could respond, I heard the familiar cadence of heels on hardwood. "Who's at the door, Alan?" Then she appeared. My mother, Vivian, still carried herself like a woman hosting a charity brunch, shoulders squared, lipstick, immaculate hair coiled into a style that hadn't changed in 20 years. For a split second, she looked exactly the same. Until she saw me. She stopped mid-step. One hand moved instinctively to her chest. Her mouth parted, but no sound came. "I thought it was time for a visit," I said. "And time you met your granddaughter." Her knees seemed to buckle slightly. Alan stepped forward, reaching to steady her out of reflex more than affection. "This is Maya," I said, gently nudging my daughter forward. "Maya, these are your grandparents. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore." Maya clutched my hand tighter, then gave them a shy little wave. Alan blinked hard, as though pulling himself into the moment. Would you like to come in?" he asked, stepping aside. The air inside the house smelled the same. Wood polish, lavender, and something older pride, maybe. The kind that stains even clean floors. It was like stepping into a photograph that hadn't been updated since the day I left. And somehow the frame still held. It began with a dress. I was 17 when my mother Vivian handed it to me, a navy blue A-line with capped sleeves and a modest neckline. "Wear this Saturday," she said, hanging it on my closet door. "We're having guests." She didn't ask if I liked it. She never did. Saturday arrived too quietly. The table gleamed under chandelier light, our best china crystal glasses, silver flatware that hadn't seen daylight in years. The air was thick with citrus cleaner and tension. My father, Alan, sat with his tie too tight, gaze fixed somewhere just above his plate. Across from me were the Duvall's family friends, recent transplants to our town, and according to my mother, very well connected. Their son, Marcus, was already seated when I entered, his smile as curated as the wine pairing. He was tall, conventionally handsome, his hair perfect, his shirt cuffs crisp. But his eyes were wrong, too cold, too calculating. When he leaned in to kiss my cheek, his hand lingered at the small of my back a moment too long. "You look stunning tonight," he said. It wasn't a compliment, it was a claim. Dinner unfolded slowly like a negotiation hidden behind pleasantries. My mother beamed, nodding too eagerly at everything the Duvalls said. Marcus joined conversations with smug certainty, tossing glances my way like I was already his. After dessert lemon tart with fresh cream, Mr. Duvall raised his glass and tapped it lightly. "I believe we should get to the real reason we're here." My mother straightened her posture. Marcus stood smiling in that practiced way. He stepped beside my chair. Time slowed. "Claire Whitmore," he said, producing a velvet box. "Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The silence that followed was surgical. My mother's hands were clasped tight, her knuckles white. Alan looked down at his plate. Marcus was still smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. I looked around the room and saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't about love. This was about leverage, image, position. My future was being handed over like a signature on a dotted line. I need some air," I said, standing quickly. "Excuse me." Outside, the night was cooler than I expected. I stood on the back porch, hands trembling. Then the door creaked open. "Marcus." That wasn't the response I was expecting, he said, closing the door behind him. "I'm sorry. This is all very sudden." He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Don't be naive, Claire. This arrangement has been in motion for months. Your mother assured us you were aligned." He stepped closer. "My father is helping yours make partner. Your mother gets her social crown. I get a beautiful young wife who knows how to host and bear children. Everybody wins. He reached for my face. I stepped back. And what if I want something different? An education. A life I choose. Marcus's face tightened. My wife won't need to work. A few cooking classes maybe, but otherwise your future is right here. He tapped the velvet box. This is your future. I looked at him and saw not a husband but a cage. No, I said the word calm and sharp. I won't marry you. Marcus's eyes darkened. You'll regret this. He turned and vanished inside footsteps heavy. I stood in the quiet, and for the first time in my life, I felt something like freedom. I walked back into the dining room with my shoulders square but my heartbeat uneven. The moment I stepped in, the atmosphere had changed. The Duvals were standing, coats already in hand. Mrs. Duval whispered sharply into my mother's ear. Mr. Duval threw a look at me like I was a deal gone sour. My father stood off to the side, his posture awkward, his mouth tight. When the door shut behind them, the sound landed like a gavel. Then came my mother's voice, sharp, shaking with disbelief. What have you done? I didn't answer right away. I could feel the weight of everything pressing against that one question, her plans, her years of control, the cracks in the version of me she'd crafted. I've saved myself, I said finally, from a life I never agreed to. You ungrateful child, she spat. Marcus Duval is one of the most eligible bachelors in this state. He would have given you security status, everything I've prepared you for. I don't want a life that's paid for in pieces of myself. Her face turned hard. This is about those college applications, isn't it? She snapped. You thought I wouldn't find them, that I wouldn't see that letter from Berkeley. My chest went still. So she knew. I want to study business, I said. Build something of my own. Vivian's voice dropped low, controlled, deadly. You're a disgrace. And then the slap. It came without warning, her palm cutting across my cheek, the sound of it louder than the storm rising outside. My skin burned. I tasted metal. Get out, she said, barely above a whisper. If you're too good for the life we planned for you, then go. See how far you get on your own. Vivian. My father tried weakly. No, she cut him off. She's made her choice. I stood there stunned, hand to my cheek. She turned her back. Pack your things. You're no daughter of mine. The rain didn't let up. Neither did the silence in my chest. I didn't cry when I packed my backpack bare essentials. The acceptance letter from Berkeley folded like something sacred, and the $300 Dad had pressed into my hand at the door. I only cried when I realized he didn't ask me where I would go. The porch light flicked off as I walked down the driveway. A message sent. My shoes soaked through in minutes. I had no plan, no umbrella, and nowhere to sleep. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone. My mother hadn't thought to take it. One number stood out like a buoy in floodwaters. Hi, it's Elise. I need help. It took Elise Park 20 minutes to reach me. Her old Civic coughed up steam as it rolled to the curb. She barely waited for me to open the door before pulling me into the kind of hug that holds you up when you can't stand anymore. She didn't ask for details, not at first, just drove. Her family lived 2 towns over in a cramped duplex that smelled like fried onions and dish soap. Her mother, Mrs. Park, opened the door in a housecoat and slippers. I expected suspicion. What I got was a towel and a mug of soup. That night, I slept on a couch that sagged in the middle. In the darkness, I kept touching the envelope under my pillow. Not to check if it was still there. To remind myself it was real. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. I enrolled in community college using my Berkeley acceptance as proof of graduation. Berkeley itself would have to wait. There was no tuition money, only the tight braid of resolve in my chest. I worked mornings at a bakery, afternoons in class nights babysitting. I slept 4 hours a night and lived on black coffee and peanut butter sandwiches. My first apartment was a 1-room shoebox above a pawn shop. The wallpaper peeled, the radiator wheezed, and the cockroaches had names by the second week. I didn't care. It was mine. I remember the night the scholarship rejection came. A thin envelope. Standard regrets. I sat on the floor, stared at my 1 bowl and 1 spoon, and thought about calling home. The number hovered on the screen. 1 call could end this. Instead, I called Elise. You left for a reason, she reminded me. You're not going to trade freedom for hot water. I hung up and wrote my marketing professor at midnight asking for extra reading. The next morning, I spilled coffee on a woman's shoes. She came back the next day, and the next. Her name was Mrs. Gloria Dempsey. She ran marketing at a mid-sized firm downtown. On the third visit, she handed me her card. Smart, quick, polite, under pressure. Ever think about applying that somewhere besides espresso machines? I didn't know it then, but she was the first door. And unlike my mother's house, this door didn't close behind me, it opened. My first day at Dempsey & Co. was in the copy room. Not glamorous, not official. Gloria had slipped me in through a back-channel junior temp support admin overflow, which meant I sorted invoices, fetched coffee, and learned how to breathe without taking up too much space. But I watched everything. I watched how Gloria ran meetings, how she held silence like a weapon, how she asked the kind of questions that made men twice her age forget their answers. I watched how campaigns were born from scraps of paper and tension. I watched who got heard and who didn't. And when no one was looking, I learned. After 6 months, she called me into her office. "You've been writing these tagline notes on the backs of invoices," she said, holding one up. "They're good. You know that, right?" I nodded barely. She leaned forward. "Don't waste time being grateful. Use the door I opened." That year, I moved from assistant to junior creative. By 24, I was head of client strategy. By 26, I had my own LLC Whitmore Strategies. The name wasn't about pride. It was about proof that someone with nothing could build something, that my mother's name didn't have to mean silence. At 27, I met Graham Wolfe, quiet, kind, allergic to ego. We met during a sustainability campaign. He talked about soil like it was sacred and listened like time wasn't in short supply. He asked before he kissed me, and when he held me, I didn't shrink. I expanded. The night I told him I was pregnant, he said only this: "Then we build something even better." It started in the car on the way home from pre-K. Maya, 4 years old, jam-stained fingers, pink dinosaur backpack, was quiet in the back seat. Too quiet. Then, her voice soft. "Mommy, how come I don't have grandparents?" The breath caught in my throat. I kept my eyes on the road. "You have Gloria," I offered, reaching for the easy answer. "And Uncle Graham's parents in Oregon." She thought for a moment. "But the ones from when you were little? Where are they?" I couldn't say they vanished. I couldn't say I had to leave. I couldn't say they chose their image over me. So I said the smallest truth. "We haven't seen each other in a very long time." Maya nodded slowly, then looked out the window again, but the question lingered like a fog. That night, after she fell asleep, clutching her stuffed frog, I sat on the porch with Graham. He didn't say anything, just passed me a cup of tea warm against my palms. "I thought I made peace with it," I whispered. "But now she wants to know." Graham looked at me the way he always did, without pressure. "Do you want her to know I didn't answer?" Not then. But at midnight, I found myself typing my mother's name into a search bar for the first time in 10 years. Her face hadn't changed. Neither had the ache. The email came 3 days later. The subject line was unassuming, "Thought you should know." It was from my cousin Lena, the only one from my mother's side who hadn't unfollowed me after I left. "Hi, Evelyn. I know this might not be welcome, but I felt you should know. Your father had emergency heart surgery last week. He's stable now, but it was serious. No pressure to respond. Just thought you'd want to know." I read it twice. 3 times. My hands were steady, but my breath was not. Graham found me standing in the hallway, still holding the phone. I showed him the screen without a word. He read, looked up, and said gently, "What are you feeling I didn't know?" My father, William Monroe, was not the one who slapped me, who packed my bags, who shut the door as I stood shaking in the rain. But he had stood there, said nothing. That silence had echoed louder than anything. I spent the night half awake, staring at the ceiling, not grieving, not planning, just listening, to the hum of the house, to the memories knocking at the corners. At 5:42 a.m., I opened my laptop and pulled up the Turner & Gray accounting website. There he was, a new headshot, a little older, gray around the temples. Same half-smile he used when he didn't know what to say. And beside that, in a sidebar, something that made my chest tighten, currently on medical leave. Partner track postponed. I shut the laptop. Maybe this wasn't just about me anymore. I didn't book the flight right away. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, yellow, wide-ruled, and started making 2 lists. On the left, everything I'd built without them. On the right, everything they'd taken when they turned their backs. One list was longer, but the other weighed more. Graham poured me coffee in silence. He knew not to ask. He just sat across from me, one hand loosely wrapped around his mug, the other brushing our daughter's crayon off the table. You said once he began that if you ever went back, it would be on your terms. Is that still true? I looked at him. Yes, I said. But I'm not going back to explain myself. I'm going because my daughter asked why she doesn't have grandparents, and I didn't know what to tell her. That night after Ella was asleep, I drafted an email. Not to my mother, not even to my father, to Lena. Thank you for letting me know about my dad. I'm not ready for a family reunion, but I will be flying into Charleston for business next month. If you feel it would do more good than harm, you can let them know. I hit send, and just like that, I had opened a door. Not wide, but open. Still, I needed insurance. 2 days later, I called my company's COO and moved our planned regional expansion to the South Carolina coast, my hometown. The numbers had supported it for months. I had just been too stubborn to look. If I'm going to step into the past, I told Graham I want the future standing right beside me. And so it was. We booked 3 tickets, me, Graham, and Ella. But there was one condition I hadn't said out loud yet, not even to myself. I would show up, but I wouldn't knock. They would have to open the door first. The day we landed, the air felt heavier than I remembered. Not hot, just thick, like memory. Ella pressed her face to the airplane window, her breath fogging the glass. Mommy, is that your old house? I followed her gaze. No, but it could have been. Same white siding, same tired shutters, same yard with no laughter in it. No, baby, I said. That's not it. We didn't drive to their house right away. First, we went to the new office building, a brick corner unit near the water, clean, open, neutral enough to feel professional, but familiar enough to feel like a place someone like me could belong. Graham stayed behind to set up the team. And I drove. The roads hadn't changed much, but everything felt smaller, like I'd outgrown the whole town by accident. Then I saw it. The house. My childhood home. It looked the same, except older. The porch railing needed painting. The rose bushes were gone, but the curtains in the front window hadn't moved. Still cream, still stiff. I parked across the street. No one had told them I was coming. That was the point. Ella kicked her legs in her booster seat, humming quietly to herself. I didn't know whether to smile or cry. Then the front door opened. Not wide. Just enough for someone to peek through. And there she was, my mother, hair still pinned just so, lipstick a little too dark for daylight, posture like a ruler. She saw me. I saw her. Neither of us moved. Ella broke the silence. Is that her? I nodded slowly. That's your grandmother. And then something I hadn't expected. My mother stepped out. She didn't wave, didn't call out. She just started walking, each step precise like she was walking down an aisle, not a driveway. She stopped at the edge of the curb, folded her hands. I rolled down the window. I thought she said, voice barely audible, you might come. My mother didn't speak right away. She stood there, hands clasped like in church eyes, locked on mine as if afraid to blink and lose me again. I opened the car door but didn't step out. Ella leaned forward, whispering, She looks like you, Mommy. I wasn't sure whether that was a comfort or a warning. Finally, I stood. The sidewalk between us felt longer than any hallway I'd ever walked as a child. She looked smaller now, or maybe I had simply grown into someone who no longer shrank before her. I didn't know you'd come back, she said. I waited. That couldn't be all. After all these years, after the slap, after the silence, after the rain that soaked through my dress, the night she sent me away, surely there was more. I heard about your company. She continued, voice stiff but quieter now. The jet. I nodded. We came to open a new office. Her eyes flicked to the car. And she's yours? I didn't answer. Instead, I crouched and unbuckled Ella. This is Ella, I said, lifting her out. She's 5, and she's curious. Ella offered a small wave. My mother didn't wave back, just stared, hands still clenched. I kept your room the same, she said suddenly. I thought maybe one day the words caught. Not out of emotion, but out of fear. Of saying too much. Or the wrong thing. There are 2 kinds of silence. One that punishes, and one that pleads. I had known her punishing silence all my life. This was something else. Something raw. Ella broke the moment. Do you have cookies? It was the kind of question only a child could ask to break open grief with something so sweet and ordinary. My mother hesitated, then opened the door wider. No, she said. But we can make some. If your mom says it's okay. My name is Gloria Whitman. I was never the favorite. That honor belonged to my younger sister Sabrina. From the time we were kids, she was the light in the room, smiling loud, the type of child neighbors remembered. Our mother, Karen Whitman, adored her. She's just like me, she'd say, with a hand on Sabrina's shoulder, as if the rest of us weren't in the room. And maybe in her mind we weren't. I was quiet. I read books. I learned how to sew before I could ride a bike. Too serious, my mother used to say, not unkindly, but not kindly either. She said it with a sigh, like I was a disappointment she'd accepted long ago. When friends came over, it was always Sabrina she showed off. I remember once when I was about 10, Karen was hosting a brunch for her bridge group. I was dressed neatly and had helped prepare the fruit tray. As I came into the living room, she caught sight of me, waved quickly, and mouthed, "Not now, Gloria." Later, she explained, "It's just... You're hard to explain. You wouldn't enjoy the chatter anyway." Robert Whitman, our father, never made me feel that way. He was quieter than Karen, steadier. He worked as a machinist for over 40 years, the kind of job that leaves oil under your nails no matter how long you scrub. He never missed dinner, never forgot a birthday, never raised his voice. He didn't show off, but he noticed everything. When I brought home a perfect score on a math exam, he stuck it on the fridge even when Karen rolled her eyes. "No one hangs test papers past middle school," she said. "It's not cute anymore." Dad just smiled and left it there. He treated us equally. That's what I held on to. Even when Karen bought Sabrina a new dress for a dance and told me, "Well, you never go to those things," I reminded myself Dad loves me the same. Even into adulthood, things didn't change much. Sabrina still lived like life owed her good things. She had jobs, but nothing steady. When one didn't work out, Karen always had an excuse for her. It wasn't the right fit, she'd say. Or the manager sounded jealous. Sabrina smiled and coasted through while I built my career slowly, carefully, and alone. I moved out first, paid my own rent, fixed my own car, visited home on weekends. And somehow, in every visit, I was still the guest no one expected. Robert, though, always noticed when I was there. He'd leave the porch light on. He'd have coffee ready. "How's work?" he'd ask and mean it. I never had to fight for his attention. He gave it freely. That was the balance of our family, Karen and Sabrina, orbiting each other, loud and glittering, and me and Dad holding still in the center. I didn't realize how fragile that balance was until it broke. Dad retired at 65. He didn't throw a party. He didn't want one. He just came home one Friday with a brown box and a pair of work gloves and said, "That's it." At first, it felt good having him around more. He built a bird feeder. He started keeping a small garden out back. I'd stop by after work, and he'd have something new to show me, nothing grand, just small useful things. That was who he was. Always fixing, always making something a little better. Then one morning he missed a step going down the back porch. It was just 4 inches. He caught the edge of it with his heel and went down hard. Broke his hip. The surgery was quick, the recovery slow. Too slow. He tried. But even with therapy, he couldn't move like before. He lost muscle, lost energy. Within months, he was mostly using a walker, then a wheelchair. He hated being still. Karen hated it more. "He just sits," she muttered once, not realizing I was in the room. "All day. Just sits there." Sabrina nodded, flipping through a magazine. It's depressing. He doesn't even talk much anymore. Can you blame him? I asked, standing behind them. They looked up, startled. Karen laughed a little too loudly. We're not saying anything bad. It's just hard to see him like that. But they weren't seeing him. Not really. They were avoiding him. It started small. Karen stopped cooking full meals. Sabrina claimed she was too sensitive to help with bathing or meds. Then came the travel brochures. I found one on the kitchen counter, a high-end resort in New Mexico. Spa wine-tasting horseback trails. Looks nice, I said, holding it up. Karen glanced over. We're thinking of taking a little trip. Without Dad? Well, of course. He can't fly like that. Who's going to be here with him? Karen waved a hand. You, I assumed. You've always been good with these things. They didn't ask. They just assumed. It kept happening. They went out more. Dinners. Weekends away. Sometimes without telling me. I'd show up to check on Dad and find him alone in the living room watching golf with the volume turned low. One evening, I arrived just before the care worker, Teresa Martin, a retired nurse we'd hired part-time, showed up. She looked confused. Is no one else home? She asked. No. Why, I was told someone would be here to assist. I called Karen. She didn't answer. Sabrina texted back 2 hours later. Out for dinner. Can't it wait? That night, I did the bathing myself. Dad apologized for the trouble. I said nothing. I couldn't bring myself to lie and say it was fine. Eventually, I asked them both to step up, rotate care days, manage meds, at least handle paperwork. Karen sighed. I didn't sign up to be a nurse. I have my own life, Gloria. Sabrina said, You're so good at this stuff. You're the one with the schedule and the binders and the phone numbers. I should have known something else was coming. About 6 months after Dad's fall, I noticed some things weren't adding up. His bank statements, ones I used to help him sort, stopped arriving. When I asked Karen, she said I switched to digital. Less clutter. I didn't push, but it bothered me. So I logged into the online account one afternoon using the credentials I'd set up years ago. Access denied. I called the bank. The manager said the account permissions had changed. I wasn't listed anymore. That same week, I overheard Karen on the phone booking a week-long retreat. Just bill the deposit to the main account, she said. Main account, I asked later. She smiled. Your father's. We have power of attorney now. It's just easier. I froze. Since when 2 months ago? We needed it, medical decisions, you know. Legal stuff. You didn't tell me. Karen shrugged. It was handled. No drama. Sabrina chimed in. You don't need to worry, Gloria. We've got it covered. But they didn't. Not really. They'd taken control, quietly, legally, and entirely, and I hadn't seen it coming. By the 8th year, Dad was down to 1 room. He didn't leave the house anymore. He stayed mostly in the den where the afternoon light was soft, and the chair by the window had become his second skin. The garden was overgrown, the bird feeder empty. He spoke less, but when he did, he still asked how my day was. I'd cut my hours at work down to part-time. Teresa, the care worker, could only cover 3 afternoons a week. The rest was mine. Karen and Sabrina had drifted into the background completely. Sabrina was between jobs again, but somehow too busy to help. Karen kept saying she had arthritis in her hands. I stopped asking. One Thursday, after a visit to the hospital for what was supposed to be a routine scan, the doctor asked me to step into his office. He didn't close the door. He didn't need to. Your father has late-stage pancreatic cancer, he said. We estimate months, not a year. Dad must have seen it in my face when I came back to the waiting room. I didn't speak. He just reached for my hand. That night, I emailed my job and resigned. There was no announcement at home. Karen didn't ask. Sabrina said, wow, that's a choice. But for me, it wasn't. Each day after that became sharper. There was no time to waste. I made meals Dad could swallow. I managed his meds, tracked appointments read to him when he was too tired to open his eyes. One evening, while I was cleaning out a drawer in the den, I found a manila envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter. It was his handwriting. Neat. A little shaky, but legible. Gloria, if you're reading this, it means I've probably already lost the energy to say things out loud. I want you to have what I've been able to gather. It's not everything, but it's something that matters. Take care of yourself first. You've done more than enough for me. Love, always, Dad. Behind the letter was a copy of a rental contract for a 2-bedroom apartment about 40 minutes from town. I recognized the name of the complex. We'd driven past it once on the way to a clinic. He'd pointed it out. Nice place, he said. Close to a park. He'd already made a deposit. And I knew why. Michael Reyes, the hospice case coordinator who sometimes covered Teresa's shifts, had become something more than kind. We'd shared late-night conversations on the front porch. Coffee in to-go cups. Quiet understanding. We weren't official, but we weren't strangers either. When Dad found out, he didn't scold. He smiled. "You deserve someone who stays," he said. And then, while I was focused on caregiving, he'd quietly planned something for me for us. A wedding date penciled into the fall calendar, paid deposits, receipts, all tucked neatly into that same envelope. He never told Karen, never told Sabrina, just me. The day before he lost the ability to speak, he whispered, "Start your life. Don't wait for permission." I held his hand and nodded. Dad passed quietly on a Sunday morning. I was with him. I'd just finished changing the sheets when I noticed his breathing had slowed. I sat beside him, held his hand, and waited. He didn't open his eyes again. There was no dramatic gasp, no last word, just the smallest exhale and stillness. I called the hospice line. I called Teresa. Then I sat on the edge of the bed for a long while, not crying, not moving, just holding space. Karen and Sabrina didn't answer right away. Karen finally picked up on the third call. "We're out shopping," she said. "You'll have to handle things." And I did. I made the calls, arranged transport, filed the death certificate, booked the church, picked the flowers. Sabrina texted me later. "Let me know what time the service is. I'll see if I can make it." The morning of the funeral, I arrived early, straightened the chairs, greeted the first few visitors. Karen showed up late in a tailored black suit. Sabrina came in after her sunglasses still on. Neither offered to help. But when it was time for the eulogy, Karen walked to the podium like it was her stage. She said all the right things, spoke about Robert's quiet strength, his devotion, his sacrifices. I stared at the floor and tried not to let the words hollow out my chest. After the service, I went home, our home, the house that still smelled like his soap and black coffee. I wanted nothing more than to be alone, but Karen and Sabrina were already there, seated in the living room with wine glasses as if nothing had happened. "We need to talk," Karen said. I stood in the entryway, still in my dress. "Can it wait?" "It can't." Sabrina held up a document. "This is a waiver," she said. "It says you agree not to contest anything in the estate. It's just a formality." I didn't move. Karen leaned forward. "We have the power of attorney, Gloria. We've spoken to the attorney. We're inheriting the house. And what's left in the accounts? It's already being processed." I looked at the paper, then at them. "Dad just died," I said. "And we're not trying to be cold," Karen replied. "But these things move quickly. Best to get ahead of it." Sabrina added, "You don't even live here anymore. You're getting married, right? You have your own place." I hadn't told them that. I didn't reply. Karen sighed. "Gloria, please don't make this difficult. We've been through enough." I wanted to argue. I wanted to shout. But instead, I picked up a pen from the coffee table and signed the form. "No one said thank you." Karen stood. "You'll need to be out in 10 days. We've already contacted a realtor." I nodded once. Sabrina poured another glass of wine. That night, I packed in silence. I took only what I needed. Clothes, Dad's framed photo, a stack of his notebooks, and the envelope he left me. No one came to the door when I left. 3 days after I left the house, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. The number was familiar home. The home that wasn't mine anymore. I picked up. Karen's voice was sharp. "Where is it?" I said nothing. "The money," she snapped. "From your father's account." "It's gone." "Everything." "What did you do?" I closed my eyes. "You told me never to contact you," I said calmly. "This isn't about that. This is an emergency. That account had thousands." Where is it you had power of attorney? I reminded her. You and Sabrina. I wasn't allowed near it. You left the passbook in the desk, she said. But the money is missing. I never touched it. There was silence. Then Sabrina's voice in the background. Ask her again. Ask her where she hid it. Karen came back on. Gloria, this is serious. We made plans. I put down deposits. Sabrina quit her job. We counted on that money. You never checked the balance before Dad passed. Why would we? He barely spent. He just sat in that room. I waited a beat. Then you didn't know I said. There wasn't much left. Impossible. No, not impossible. I told her about the apartment, the venue, the deposits, the letter. Michael. Sabrina grabbed the phone. You're lying. I'm not. You took more than we ever got. Dad made that choice. You weren't there. He knew what he was doing. Sabrina's voice broke. So that's it. That's the inheritance. A wedding and some rent money, I suppose it was? Did he think that made us even? I didn't answer. Karen got back on the line. Her voice was quieter now. We have nothing left, Gloria. I already paid for the cruise, and the house needs work we can't afford. There's nothing coming in. We need help, just until things settle. You told me I said that I'd never be part of the family again, that I should leave and never come back. That was before. No, that was exactly who you are. She didn't reply. I ended the call and blocked the number. I didn't hear from them again, not directly. But word has a way of traveling. The cruise couldn't be refunded. Karen had paid in full, convinced she'd be replenished by the estate. Sabrina had already posted about it online photos of suitcases, captions with palm trees. They canceled, but the money was gone. They tried to hold on to the house, but the pipes were old, the roof needed patching, and no one wanted to invest in a property with 2 names on the deed and no savings to fix it. They sold. Not at market price. It was fast and quiet and lower than what Karen had expected. After fees and moving costs, there wasn't much left. They moved into a condo on the other side of town. Smaller. No yard, no porch light. Sabrina went back to work. Temp jobs. She tried borrowing from friends, but people had grown tired, especially after she'd told them she'd be well off soon. Whatever relationship she'd been chasing fell apart. Men stopped calling. Karen tried to return to her part-time gig at the consignment store. They'd already filled the position, and at her age, jobs don't come easily. I never responded. I didn't need to. Their story was unfolding with or without me. The only thing I allowed myself to think was this. It was never about revenge. It was just about walking away finally without guilt. We got married in early fall. It was quiet, just a few close friends, no fanfare. The venue was the one Dad had circled in the brochure, tucked behind a grove of oaks with a porch that caught the evening light. Michael stood beside me, steady as ever. I wore a simple dress, no veil. There were no empty chairs, but I felt him there. We framed the letter and hung it by the front door of our new apartment. The ink had faded just slightly at the edges, but the words still held, "Take care of yourself first. You've done more than enough for me." Sometimes when I leave for work or come home late, I pause in front of it, just for a second. He didn't leave me a fortune. He left me peace. And I think maybe that was the point all along. Some people inherit houses. Others inherit silence. I used to think the quiet ones, those who stayed behind, who did the work no one thanked them for, had no story worth telling. But maybe that's never been true. Maybe you were the one who packed up your father's things alone. Maybe you were the one who paid the bills when no one else showed up. Maybe no one ever said thank you or you mattered. And still, you stayed. If you've been erased from your own family's story, this one was for you. You don't need to explain. You don't need to defend why you left or why you never went back. But if there's a word someone should have said to you, one word that still sits in your chest, just leave it here. We'll understand.